All right, it's Monday, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting to where we don't have that many Mondays left together. Like a dozen or so Mondays left.
Bella, where's Jordan?
All right. However, with all the enthusiasm you have this Monday morning because that extra rest you got, being blessed Friday with snow day, we should get a lot accomplished today, right, Ev? Here we go. It is Monday, February 10th. Happy birthday, Rosalina. Can you say Rosalina? That is my niece. Anybody here go to Tabernacle, Presbyterian?
Oh, yeah, I've met her.
Ow!
Really?
Yeah. Because she told me about how
So anyway,
yeah, I talked to her.
okay, today's her birthday, 28.
Happy birthday!
My niece.
Yeah.
You think that's old? All right.
Yeah, I think you asked me.
Numbers 3 and 4, I believe, is all you have to do. True? What'd you have to do?
That's true. 3 and
3 and 4 on 348. Please don't let. Hello, Dina. Thanks, Isaac. Number 3, you should have gotten 10.24.
Let's see.
10.24. Number 4, you should have gotten 12.5%. Make sure you're getting these labels right. If they're asking percent, you got to put the percent sign on the end. There's a big difference between 12.5 and 12.5%. Yes. But, yeah. Who else had their hand up? Thursday or Friday? I can't remember.
Can you say that again?
10.24 and 12.5.
I think I did something wrong.
All right, today we're going to talk about the I word. Who knows what the I stands for? Raise your hand. Don't blurt it out. Kiara. Interest. Interest is going to be a very important word in your life. It might not be now, but it will. For 2 reasons. And please stop talking. When you get older, David, interest is going to be important in your life for 2 reasons. It's going to have a negative effect and a positive effect. It's going to have a negative effect if you're borrowing money, which most of you at some point in your life will, just like most of your parents do. Most of your parents probably own their house, or you live in a house that they quote-unquote own, but they don't quite own because they pay a mortgage. And since most people don't have $100,000 or $200,000 laying around to say, here, I'm going to buy this house and I'm giving you all the money at once. Very few people can do that, and they're very blessed, but most don't. So they pay a monthly mortgage and they pay interest based on their, P stands for principal. The principal in this case is the dollar amount, if you were borrowing money, the dollar amount you borrowed. The R stands for, anybody know? Rate of interest. The rate. And the T stands for time. So a lot of people have mortgages, and the interest is based on how much they're borrowing, what the rate is, 5%, 4%, and then you multiply that by the time, 20 years, 30 years. So if you were borrowing money to buy a house, it's very common. If you were buying, say, $150,000 house, after 30 years, guess how much you pay back? Take a guess. Just a ballpark estimate. After 30 years, if you buy a $150,000 house, because you agree, because you don't have the $150,000 up front, they loan you the money. Anybody got a, based on today's interest rates? I don't know the exact answer. I'm just, give me a ballpark. You borrowed 150. What do you think you're paying back after 30 years?
170,000.
180. 300.
Anybody else? Closest would be Spencer Pruitt. Does that sound fair?
Did you guess?
No.
Does that sound fair?
No.
Listen,
How would you still be 150? How would you get money back?
you're not getting money back, that's what you're paying them back. By the time you're done paying over 30 years, you're paying like double what the price cost. Because you didn't have 100, and most people take that deal because they spread their payments out over 30 years. They don't have 150,000 to give the person for the house. You see how that works?
Yeah.
So you're paying that interest because the bank loaned you the money up front to buy the house. You're willing to do that. Does that make sense? And at today's interest rate, now, if the interest rates were higher, say the interest rates were like 8% instead of 4%, now you're paying close to $400,000 by the time those 30 years are done. Does that make sense to everybody? Is anybody paying attention? Now, how could interest work for you? That's interest working against you, so to speak. It's not working against you. You agree to that deal, but you're paying more for the house than the house is worth because you're paying that money back to the bank.
Yes.
How can interest work for you? It works against you if you're a borrower. How could it work for you?
If your family member takes $20, you can make them give you $40 back.
Well, if you're a loan shark, you would charge them 100% interest, so they would pay you back $40 for $20.
I charge 50%.
Banks can't do that.
I'm
Yeah.
not parents do that.
How can interest work for you? Yes.
So if you put money in a special account,
Okay.
that's what it's called, people pay interest.
So you save, right? If you borrow money, it works against you. If you save money, it works for you. And the first example we're going to do, you might not think that's a whole lot, but what work did you do for this money? Example number 3, borrowing page 348. You deposit $500 in your savings account, a simple interest rate of 2.5% per year, which, by the way, you're not getting today. That's high today. That doesn't seem like a lot, but putting your money in a normal savings account in today's world isn't a smart thing to do with your money. You'd rather put it in a thing that Jaden said that she doesn't know the name of, like 401k or something like that, where you're investing the money. But if you did that, how much interest would you earn after 18 months? Here's what they do. They use this formula. What is I? It's the principal. They used $500. Follow the example. They multiply. Oh, by the way, these are all 3 written together. What's that mean? Multiply. They multiply the 500 by 2.5%. What did they write for 2.5%, Ethan? How'd they write 2.5%?
Put 0.02
Why?
because you have to move the decimal 2 places.
To the left. So it goes from here 2 places to the left. This is 2.5%. And the final thing they multiply by is 1.5. Where did they get that number at?
Oh,
The years. They didn't give us years.
18 months.
18 months. Does everybody understand that 18 months is 1.5 years?
yes.
You follow that, Dina? You sure? Okay, so they took 500 times 1.5, that's how I would do it first, and then multiply that by 0.025. And how much money did you earn in interest? Right at the bottom of the page there. Go ahead, raise your hand, say it, participate. Kira. And how much work did you do for that money? 0. Interest can work for you if you save your money. You didn't do any work. All you did was put it in the bank. Or if in today's world, if all you did was put it in, your parents have this thing at work called a 401k, put it in there and it's probably making more than 2.5%. And what are they doing for the money? Nothing. They're just, the money is working for you. Interest is going to be a big part of your life in a positive way, hopefully, and a negative way. Right now in our economy, it's a very positive thing if you're saving your money. And it's actually not that bad if you're borrowing. The interest rates are low. Okay, ready? Here we go. Your job because we've already covered the first two examples. You did 3 and 4 for today's work. So now we just go to work with numbers 1 through 18.
So excited.
Go.
Oh,
I am here. In case you run into trouble, raise your hand. Somebody said last week, how come we never do number 1? There you go. By popular demand, you get to do number 1.
I said I'm okay with not.
And right now she's thinking, he heard that? Teachers like moms got ears, eyes, back of their head and all that stuff.
But if they're wrong, what did you
Things they hear that they would never acknowledge they heard. Things they see that they don't acknowledge, like people chewing gum in class when they know gum is not allowed to be chewed in class.
Really?
They don't really say anything about it at the time.
Why do teachers do that?
Things they notice.
See it, but they don't even.
What is it? Well, get it out.
We do that all the time. Most of our teachers make cool.
And then we feel allowed to have it.
What'd you write? Is everybody done with number 1? What's that called? No, it's not called the race. It's the principle. With an AL, by the way.
With an AL.
AL.
At the end.
At the end. Doesn't that make it like an owl? It's a principal. I drew an owl. Were you guys? But why would it be that time? Yeah,
Good
because
question.
the principal again, they shoot. What did you want to make sure my Spider-Man? 3 2. What do you 3 2? If we were playing a horror when I was so,
No, I saw one.
Thing. We're gonna follow the same process when we do it. Yeah. I gotta find out. I'm gonna do what we always do. We review 2 days.
I got shut.
yeah.
Micah, please turn around and get to work. There's a whole lot of chatter that has nothing to do with math. If you're talking to your neighbor about, hey, is this what you did for number 3, 4, fine, but that's not what I'm hearing. If you're not done with number 2, or if you haven't even set up number 2 yet, raise your hand. So you don't know how to set up number 2, read this with me. Ready, Noah? We're gonna translate these words into an equation. What number is 46% of 90? See if this makes sense to you. What number is, this is the number, this is what I don't know. I need to know this. Is, what is it, 46%?
Yeah.
46% of
90.
90?
Or 900.
So I'm gonna do 900 times 0.46.
Okay.
Reading it literally, 46% of times. Is it okay in pre-algebra if I always use the raised dot for multiplication now?
No.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
46% of, or I could have done this. All of those mean multiply.
So we'll get 1 times 2 and then get the answer. 442.
Yes.
Yes, Micah. Still learning that.
Oh, yeah.
So be slider.
132 is 24% of what?
Whenever you like that,
Yes.
I did 130. That's what I had 1.24. Probably 1 right?
Because it's funny and it's like that. I can say my phone's so precious.
All right, gentlemen, again, talking about math, acceptable. What?
Why?
Read it. 100, this is what it says in your book, in words. 132 is 24% of what number? This is what I don't know, what number, and they're multiplied because they use the word of. 132 is 24% of times what number? That's what I want to know.
How do we divide?
So you got to divide 132 by 0.24.
I multiplication better.
The little ones on
What?
Wait, what does is mean? Is it is mean?
You got to get rid of the 0.24.
Yeah.
It means.
Yeah.
Can't remember. Okay. Alright. So. For number 3.
Yeah.
Should you get a fraction? Because when you have like 205 over 2, you divide.
205 is what percent of
So
250?
you divide it by. I like to put up. Yeah. Bella, I'm trying to get out. Yeah, that. So you just reduce it. Who watches the XFL? Yeah.
Hey, listen. First detention slips ever given by Mr. Franken. Who's going to be the lucky recipient? What number is this?
3. Wait, 3?
Listen, let me read number 3 for you and make sense of it. 205 is what percent of 250? If you understand that percent is the same as a decimal or fraction, math sense. 205 is what part of 250? 205 is what part of 250? It's simply a fraction.
Yeah.
205 is what percent of 250? Ends up like this. Because percent and fractions are the same. So if I asked you, 3 is what percent of 5? 3 is what part of 5? It's 3/5, 60%.
Okay.
Follow that again.
Yeah.
205 is what percent of 250? Think with me. 205 is what part of 250? 9 is what part of 10? It's 9/10, 90%. 9 is what percent of 10? 90%. I'm going to keep saying it till it gets in your brain. Ready? 4 is what percent of 5? 4 is what part of 5? 4/5. 80%. What part of? What percent of? 205 is what percent of 250? 205 is what part of 250? You make a fraction.
That's it. Great. Another
I
one.
know it's more than 62. Because I know 20 out of 25 is 4/5. I know it's got to be over 80. Listen, 205 is what percent of 250?
So then,
I'm going to keep saying it. Ready? If I asked you, 3 is what part of 5? How would you write that as a fraction? It's 3/5, isn't it?
yeah.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so what percent is that?
Is
60.
yeah.
205 is what percent of 250? 205 is what? Yes. What part of 250? Make it a fraction.
Okay, that's it. I didn't know you guys put it back in
82.
percent. Okay.
Yeah, you want your answer as a percent because that's what they're asking.
That's what Wait, what do you do? You multiply 4 to 5 as well? Wait, what are you doing?
David, did you write that fraction?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you do with a fraction, David? How do you change a fraction into a decimal?
Multiply no.
David, read this literally. 205 divided by 250. But I would reduce it first. Would you reduce that first? Or you could say this. Either way.
That's what I did. And then I multiplied 205.
Okay, and divide by 250.
Yeah.
See, you're going to get the same thing.
I want to see it.
No. You didn't divide right. 82. Go! Big smart. Listen, David, it ends up being the same as just doing 205 divided by 250 and then making it a percent, moving the decimal point. Yes, sir.
Do number 11.
115 is, you're going to do it. Ready? Right, 115. What are you going to put for is? What? Not is, but is. 2 plus 2 is 4. Equals. 115 equals. How are you going to write 46%? 0.46 of times something you don't know. Put any letter you want. Isaac, Lauren, stop. So 115 equals 0.46 and 0.46x. And now how do you get rid of the 0.46? Thank you, Dave. 6. A savings account pays 3% annual interest rate. Listen, if you went into a bank today and you said, hey, can I get 3% savings or percent on my savings? They would laugh so loud. Honestly, I think right now at a normal bank, I don't even think it's 1%.
What if you ask for 100%?
Now that's bad news for savers, but it's good news for, listen up, lower interest rates. Who's that good news for? Savers or borrowers? Borrowers. Bad news for savers, good news for borrowers. When I was your age, the interest rates were really, 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 really high. There was something called the misery index when I was 12 years old, 13. It was in the late 70s, and President Carter was the president, and it might be the worst economy outside the Great Depression that America has experienced. Get this. Inflation, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Bad thing as a consumer. That was over 10%. Interest rates were close to 20%. So if you wanted to borrow money, you had to pay 20%, almost 20% interest on the money you were borrowing. Compared to today, like 3 or 4%. So not many people were buying homes. Today, people are able to buy and sell their homes very quickly because the interest rate's low. So people are willing to buy. What's that?
We sold it like twice though. Like we sold it and then like didn't work and then we like sold it again. It was a
All right, listen up. We're in the middle of 6. Thanks, Lauren. David, did you already do 6? The interest rate is 3%. How much must you put in your savings account to earn $100 in 6 months? Use I equals P RT. Substitute what you know. What do you want in interest? 100. So they substituted 100 for the principal. For the interest, right? What you're asked to find is the principal. It says, how much would you have to put in? You following that, Noah and Micah? How much would you have to put in? That's what you don't know. You don't know the P. They told you the I, 100. You don't know the P. They also told you the rate of interest is 3% times 0.03. They also told you that the time was 6 months. What part of a year is 6 months? Half. 0.5. So you got to do 0.5 times 0.03.
What?
You're going to get 0.015.
Yeah.
And then you're going to, so it's 0.015 times P equals 100. So what's your principal? You have to divide both sides by 0.015.
That's just a Jaden.
Jaden. What?
Sure.
Oh,
David, you only get around the end.
Oh yeah, I was just doing that same division problem.
That doesn't make any sense. Why'd you write on your map? Why'd you write on your map?
Well, since I can make it into a math question, I'll answer it, Micah. Because after the revolution, according to the Treaty of Paris, 1783, America's boundaries were basically Great Lakes down to Georgia, Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River. In 1803, after the Louisiana Purchase, America doubled in size.
It's still on the page.
There's your map. Double. Territories. It was just territory, and then as people kept moving west, they populated and became states. What you need, Noel?
That's on our test.
Noel, what you need? Which one are you looking at? Number 6?
Yeah. 3. I thought you wanted about 6.
It's called the Louisiana Purchase because Louisiana was.
We just learned about that like 2 weeks ago. Louisiana's that big.
Should have been here in 5th grade. We would have had a test on it.
I got one with that game.
Look at that game.
I was just looking at my grandmother.
Questions? Conversations only about our math word. Spencer, you're done. Okay. Time out, Spence. You're standing there readily admitting that you're not sure that they're all right. Yet, go ahead.
I think I got that right.
What number? What number you have doubt about? Did you say all of them?
He said all of them.
I said all of them. But I actually got Halo.
15?
I'm sure she did.
Oh.
I got 0.5%.
Check on me.
About math? Your book's not even open. And don't give me the, I'm going to do it next period. All right, Spencer, let's read this literally. 3 is what percent of 600? 3 is what percent of 600? 3 is what part of 600? Just like this one. You could write this and set it equal to 100, or you could just do 3 divided by 600.
Oh, I got 0.5%.
0.5%.
Oh, okay.
I just have to multiply, but I don't want to.
3.5%.
For number 15.
Bella.
I'm not. I'm still trying to do that division problem.
I don't have to multiply.
Then I got 6 repeating to 10, then you carry on with 0.
Would you stop rounding?
17,
Yeah, I know.
17, it is not 90. Your principal is 250. So you plug in 250 right there, right? Your rate is 2%. How did you write 2%? 0.02. Your time is 3 years. How did you write 3 years? 3. So you got 3 times 250, which is 750, right? So it ends up being 750 times. It doesn't matter because doesn't matter which way you multiply. I only did, listen, I did 250 times 3 because those are easy for me to compute in my head. So I got 750 times 0.02.
I had 250 times 0.02.
Okay, what'd you get for that?
30.
2%. 750? Yeah. No.
Lauren, hey.
2% of 7. Oh, I'm sorry, 2% of 250. You shouldn't have got 30.
Lauren.
You should have got 50, shouldn't you?
Oh, I see that. What you are? Lauren. Black. Yes. Bella, find the track.
I'm sorry.
It's on my calendar. No, I don't want to yell. Wait, this is like running.
Which number?
I told my dad I would. Me too. I was really mad.
Listen, cut again. Time is always computed in years. So when it was 18 months at the beginning of the class, it was 1.5 because that's 1.5 years. In number 17, the T is going to be 3 because it's 3 years. The rate is going to be 0.02. The principal is 250. It doesn't matter which order you multiply those. You're going to get the same answer. 250 times 2%, 5, times 3 is 15. 250 times 3, 750. 2% of that, 15. Test is looking like Friday.
Yes. No.